Hello everybody, this is Glenn, and I thought I'd do this little video to document the current state of my build of Coupe 674. As you can see, there's several modifications in there, and one of the things I want to do with this video is document the changes that I've made so far and the current state of things. At this point, we're at what I would call the body on mock-up. The body has never been off the frame. My first task was to align the body with the frame, got it exactly where I wanted it, and then nailed it down and started cutting up. I had a bunch of modifications I wanted to do, and they're primarily geared toward making this a little bit more of a road car, a little bit less of a track car, realizing that's a big time compromise. This is never going to be a cruiser, but I wanted to do what I could with it. So, starting at the back, we'll take a look at some of the changes I've made that are in the works. First of all, this is the arrangement of the tail that I'm looking at. You'll notice that the lights are above and a little bit wide of the original locations. This is for visibility. I want to use some big bright LEDs in there and separate them as much as possible to give the drivers behind me an idea of what I'm up to. The white circles represent tail lights, and the tail lights I'm going to be using are these pieces from Grote Industries. They're basically truck tail lights. This particular unit incorporates a stop, tail, turn, and backup light all in one piece. Very nice, very tidy installation. Just needs a 4-inch diameter hole, and as you can see, it needs about an inch worth of clearance on the back for the body and a little bit more for the connector. So that's, as things go with modifications, that leads to some other changes. So at the same time I did that, I also needed to make some room in the back end, and I kind of went over the top with this. What I did here is, first of all, I dropped the trunk floor down to the level that the upper surface of the regular tank would be, and then fitted up a custom tank from RCI Racing, Racer's Choice. It's going to be about a 17-gallon tank. It measures 6 inches deep at the front and 6 inches deep at the rear, 8 inches deep at the front, and that little bit of taper makes it fit very nicely into the frame and tuck up under the body without having to do a lot of cutting in there. Also, at the same time, while we're back here, you'll see that wooden stick across the back. That's going to be replaced by a 2-inch rectangular piece, or that's going a 2-inch square piece rather. That's going to be supporting a lot of the back end and give me some protection against rear end collisions against that tank. Also, at the same time, I'll be removing the sheet metal brackets that mount the original tail lights. That'll be taken off, giving me a little bit of extra room for the depth of the lights I will be using. So as you can see, I tore out pretty much most of the trunk floor, and I'm going to be replacing it, of course, like I said, with the 2-inch square tubing and some other material in there to fill in the space and brace up that back end a little bit. Also, I'm looking at putting a battery box right in there. There's a steel box that I think I'm going to be welding to the frame, and of course that piece of cardboard just simulates the battery itself. That should give me a nice tidy installation of the battery. Gobs more trunk room. Just a little better finished look, I think. On to the next thing. With regard to ride quality of the car, we're looking at the IRS mount. This is the Gen 2 Thunderbird differential mount. That is, of course, solid welded to the frame. And I've come up with the help of a couple of friends, come up with a piece that I think is going to do a pretty nice job mounting that differential and eliminating some of the vibration that would be transmitted through the solid mount. This piece is made out of the same thickness steel as the mount that's welded to the frame, but it incorporates the rear IRS differential bushing from the Mustang Cobra. So it should be up to the task. This will be welded into the position of the existing frame, the existing bracket. The back plate will be welded to the cross tubes at the rear, and of course this then bolts up to the diff. On to the major piece of work, and that is the doors. My goal here was to incorporate a real window, a slide down window with this car. I'd seen a couple of other attempts. Look, I'm sorry, a couple other people have a work in progress right now that is very interesting. They've taken a little different approach. Along with getting a power window in here, I also wanted to make a bigger door opening, so that's why I took the approach I did. You'll notice that the door skin is extended down to where the rocker panel would be, and likewise the bottom of the hood is extended down to give me a matching parting line. The door frame is entirely custom. It picks up from the plate that attaches to the hinge and then goes from there. And I'm going to remove that outer panel. It bolts on with 4 studs that are bonded to the piece. Right now I just have it laying on here. And so I'll lay it out here so you can have a look at the inner side of it. There we have basically 4 studs, 1 in each corner, that are bonded to the fiberglass, and that's the mounting point. You'll also see these metal tabs, several of them around the periphery. Those will screw to the skin of the door frame that will then close the door and really stiffen things up quite a bit. It actually comes out pretty nice in the end. It looks a little ragged now, but once it's cleaned up, I think it'll be good. And this is what's left in the door opening. The window frame is constructed from steel from Specialty Power Windows, and the window regulator is also from them. You see there's a huge solenoid for a door popper. And let's see what else. Well, as you can tell here, I cut out the rocker panel and created a new door sill, which is about 2 inches lower than original. And also at the back, the hump of the wheel well that intrudes into the door opening is pretty much gone, and I simply started at the bottom corner of the door and just cut straight up to make myself the door jamb. That of course meant that I needed to build a new sealing surface for the weather stripping, so this is all roughed in. This steel down here is going to be covered over with a thin skin of fiberglass at the body shop, and that will give a nice window sealing surface. I also needed to create a B-pillar of some sort, so I put this piece together. It's basically a combination of some bend-up sheet metal that I did myself and Russ Thompson's Porter window treatment. That piece of cardboard there is the only piece that's not one of Russ Thompson's pieces. That will be, of course, replaced by the plexi that he supplied when we get to final assembly a long way down the road. Next up, you'll notice the wipers. I got the marine wipers that have been pretty popular with these builds. They are good, sturdy, solid units, but they do take up a bunch of room. Also notice that the heater is in a little bit of an unconventional position. Taking a tip from some other folks on the forum, I flipped that around, had that heater mounted forward of that huge 2-inch rectangular, or 2-inch square tube, and that will make for a whole lot more room in the passenger compartment. Notice it's a real tight fit there, that wiper motor just fits in there between parts of the heater motor. So to accommodate that position of heater motor, the firewall had to go forward. And I was already planning on using a Coyote in this build and following Michael Leach's model of pushing that engine forward about 3 inches, which would let me put in a completely vertical firewall, but I'll show you that in a minute. Back to the doors, they open and close very nicely. And I do have the door popper wired up, so I'll walk over here to the other side where the door is assembled. And indeed the door pops and closes very nicely. This is going to be a little bit of a reach, but I'm going to try to, my switch for the window is way down here, and try to give you there goes the window up, and there goes the window down. At this point I don't have the finish window channel in yet, but just to show the pieces that will be part of it, this is a piece of the inner felt from, I think that came from Hagen Auto, that will rivet to this bar and support the inner side of the window. And on the outside have this piece also from Hagen Auto. This profile will fit in here on the inside of that flange that you've seen on the other door and wipe against the outer side of the glass. One more thing I did, more for appearance sake than anything else, is to not use the latches down at the side, but rather use these catches from AeroCatch. They're a nice slick little unit, little pop, and the thing comes up and disengages from a pin below. I think they're pretty cool. It's become a little bit of an issue trying to marry that with the hood opening. The hood just wants to rub in the bodywork a little bit because the bottom tapers in just a touch because I extended it downward. I'm going to brake at this point and lift the hood and give you a look at what's going on under there. So we're back. I lifted the hood and I want to show you the pin that matches up with the catch on the hood. That actually works pretty nicely. The hood comes down and the latch engages with that little pin there, and when you swing that lever down, another pin goes through the first pin to really lock it down. This is mounted to the existing bracket where the other latch would normally go. And you'll also notice I have this contorted piece of metal, and the purpose of this is to guide the rear corner of the hood down into position. Probably going to look at an alternative to this. This thing kind of counts on pieces of the body rubbing together or rubbing against a metal surface, and that's probably going to cause some problems with paint, so I'm probably going to look for another solution here. Also, I mentioned the firewall. I used so far I have the original piece of steel, or aluminum rather, from the kit for the firewall, but I straightened out that 45-degree lip at the bottom. This is intended to mount leaning backwards at about 45 degrees and then anchoring against the 2-inch square tubing back there. Forms the part of the cowl. However, I put in a temporary, and I'm going to make it permanent for sure, a 1-inch square steel tubing firewall support back here. It really, I think, is reminiscent of what the Gen 1 cars had. It does the job of supporting this firewall very stiffly, and also it's the place that the heater and AC unit is mounted to. That is, it's one other thing I guess to mention, and a lot of people have done this. I wanted to stiffen up the hood, so I used some 1-inch angle fiberglass pieces and bonded them to the hood. using the upper splash guards as guide as to where those pieces need to go. Also here you can see the underside of the catch that I'm using on the hood. I think at this point I'm ready to have a bunch of guys over here and give me a hand to lift this body off the frame, and then we'll get to the business of finish welding the mods to the frame and get to some other things in the frame that haven't been accessible to me yet because the body's in the way. And then the frame goes off to paint, and boy, when that's done, I think I can actually start assembling this thing. Thanks for listening, gang. Talk to you later. Bye.